has made comments about the owner's offer back to the WNBA players, and she's none too happy. But I got to tell you, I am very confused, although I shouldn't be considering how they handle relationships in this league. I'm very confused as to why Breanna Stewart and Napheesa Collier are even involved in this. All right. Why are they even involved? So, anyway,
The Women's National Basketball Association currently finds itself in the midst of critical collective bargaining agreement negotiations, with players seeking enhanced compensation packages while ownership focuses on roster expansion and league growth initiatives. The organization appears positioned to increase its regular season schedule, potentially reaching 50 games in the near future, alongside preparations for incoming franchises. During these crucial discussions, several key figures have emerged as vocal critics of management's initial proposals. Players have characterized the owner's opening offers as inadequate and disrespectful, with union representatives expressing significant dissatisfaction with the negotiation process thus far.
I'm not sure what the players are expecting. I just hope that they understand that they're at a negotiation table across from sharks. Not minnows, not guppies, not goldfish you flush down the toilet when you forget to feed them for a few days. They're across from sharks. They swim in the waters and they smell blood when it comes to the WNBA Players Association, and they smell blood, especially when they see how they've been treating the only player in the league that draws some moolah. They're like,
recent statements from prominent players indicate deep frustration with the league's approach to contract discussions. One representative described feeling completely dismissed during early negotiations, suggesting that ownership failed to engage meaningfully with player concerns and proposals. The negotiation process has followed predictable patterns, with both sides beginning from extreme positions before gradually moving toward compromise. Initial offers typically represent minimal concessions, requiring extensive back-and-forth discussions to reach acceptable terms for all parties involved.
So, anyway, the owners came back with an offer, and Satu Sabali said it was a slap in the face. Breanna Stewart echoed that sentiment on Thursday by saying it felt like the players were, quote, ignored by the WNBA's initial offer. Quote, absolutely frustrated, Stewart said of negotiations. Anytime you go back and forth, you're not expecting to hear that yes on the first proposal, but you're expecting to have.
However, the current negotiation structure has raised serious questions about potential conflicts of interest within the Players Association leadership. Two prominent figures serving in executive roles within the union have simultaneously established a competing professional basketball league, creating unprecedented ethical concerns. These individuals hold significant influence over collective bargaining discussions, while simultaneously operating a rival organization that could potentially benefit from WNBA labor disputes. The situation presents obvious conflicts between their responsibilities to union members and their personal business interests.
Treating the only player in the league that draws some moolah, they're like, oh no. And you guys want this? And you guys don't, oh, this is going to be an easy negotiation. You want to lock out? Fine. You want to say no to the deal? Cool. In fact, this is cutting into my 12 o'clock appointment anyway. That's what the owners are saying. They got nothing to lose. Why? Because they've already been losing supporting this league. It is what it is. Facts don't got time for your...
The competing league launched by these players represents a direct alternative to the WNBA, particularly during off-season periods. Any disruption to the established league's operations, including potential lockouts resulting from failed negotiations, would likely increase interest and participation in the alternative organization. This dual loyalty situation raises fundamental questions about the integrity of the negotiation process. Representatives who stand to gain from unsuccessful WNBA negotiations cannot reasonably be expected to advocate wholeheartedly for agreements that strengthen the primary league.
Have a conversation. They just kind of ignored everything we said. So I guess they didn't give them anything they asked for. These are not the kind of updates that fans were hoping to hear, or for, but also not all that surprising at this stage in the negotiation process. Absolutely. They start out with giving you nothing. and then you go from there. And each side is going to have to get softer on.
Professional sports organizations typically prohibit such obvious conflicts of interest, recognizing that divided loyalties compromise the negotiation process. The WNBA's tolerance of this situation reflects broader organizational issues that have plagued the league throughout its existence. The Players Association appears unconcerned with these ethical considerations. Despite the clear appearance of impropriety, this attitude demonstrates a concerning lack of business acumen and professional standards within the organization's leadership structure.
Facts don't got time for your feelings. Shout out to Rudy at Come On Now, the podcast. WNBA facing backlash on Thursday amid CBA negotiations. 2 days after Phoenix Mercury forward Satou Sabally called the WNBA's opening offer in collective bargaining talks a slap in the face, New York Liberty star Breanna Stewart gave another update that was not any better. On Thursday, three-time WNBA champion Stewart was quoted as saying she was absolutely frustrated with the league's negotiations.
Public perception of these negotiations has been significantly impacted by the conflict of interest situation. Outside observers struggle to understand how such an arrangement could be considered acceptable within a professional sports context. The alternative league, founded by these negotiation representatives, has experienced limited success since its inception. Viewership figures for their events have been notably low, raising questions about the viability of the competing organization.
Softer on various issues. Now, this structure of this league is wild. You've heard me say, and you've heard a lot of other people say, there's a lot of reasons why people don't take the WNBA seriously. One of them is the fact that they allow romantic relationships between players on opposing teams. And somehow, some way, that's not considered the mother of all conflicts of interest.
Despite these modest results, the existence of the alternative league continues to create complications for WNBA negotiations. The potential for personal financial gain from WNBA difficulties remains regardless of the competing league's current performance levels. The situation becomes more problematic when considering the broader context of league leadership decisions. Recent controversies involving media relations and player advocacy have already damaged the organization's reputation and credibility.
Absolutely frustrated with the league's negotiating tactics. They kind of just ignored everything we said Stewart, a vice president and member of the WNBA Players Association Executive Committee. In response, the league and WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert in particular faced heavy criticism on social media from fans worried about the looming possibility of a lockout when the current collective bargaining agreement ends after the 2025 season. Oh, we got our expansion teams? Yeah.
One particularly notable incident involved attempts to restrict media access for a veteran sports journalist who had supported women's athletics for decades. The journalist's accountability questions regarding player conduct were deemed inappropriate by union leadership, leading to efforts to limit her access to league events. This response pattern demonstrates misplaced priorities within the organization's leadership structure. Rather than addressing substantive issues like negotiation conflicts of interest, leadership focuses on controlling media narratives and protecting players from legitimate scrutiny.
Conflicts of interest. So it shouldn't be surprising that these players have decided to allow Napheesa Collier and Breanna Stewart to be heavily involved in this, despite being the founders of a rival sports league. I felt terrible. Somebody tagged me in this. Evelyn DR, go follow, over on X, tagged me and several of my brethren.
The contrast between these priorities reveals fundamental problems with the league's governance and professional standards. Organizations that prioritize image management over ethical business practices typically struggle to achieve long-term success and credibility. The current negotiation situation exemplifies these broader organizational challenges. Rather than ensuring the highest standards of professional conduct during critical business discussions, the league has allowed obvious conflicts of interest to compromise the process. Alternative approaches to representation during these negotiations would have been readily available. The Players Association could have selected representatives without competing business interests to lead collective bargaining efforts.
Oh, we got our expansion teams? Yeah, cool. Oh, we got our new media deal? Cool. My job's here is done. Owners, you cool? Okay, we're done here. I don't know if fans don't understand this. Kathy Engelbert does not work for the players. Shh, quiet. Kathy Engelbert works for the owners. Her number one priority is to make sure that those team owners are happy. And they need to turn a profit very quickly.
The failure to recognize and address these conflicts suggests either a lack of business sophistication or a deliberate decision to prioritize personal interests over organizational welfare. Neither explanation reflects well on the league's leadership capabilities. The timing of these negotiations coincides with increased public attention to women's professional basketball. High-profile players and increased media coverage have created opportunities for the league to establish itself as a major professional sports organization. However, these opportunities require professional management and ethical business practices to be realized effectively. The current negotiation situation undermines confidence in the league's ability to capitalize on its improved visibility and fan interest.
Let me get this straight. Breanna Stewart is the WNBA president, and Collier is a vice president. Well, it looks like they're both vice presidents, but the question would be why? Why are they allowed to be involved in this at all? They co-founded Unrivaled, a league that benefits if there's a WNBA lockout. No.
The competing league situation also highlights questions about player priorities and loyalty to the primary organization, establishing alternative employment opportunities while simultaneously negotiating for improved conditions within the existing league creates obvious tensions. These divided loyalties become particularly problematic when the alternative opportunities are controlled by the same individuals responsible for primary league negotiations. The potential for manipulation and self-serving decisions becomes significant under such circumstances. The broader implications of this situation extend beyond the immediate negotiation period. Future collective bargaining efforts may be similarly compromised if the league fails to establish clear ethical standards for union leadership.
Quickly, very soon. And the current product, without 22 in Indiana, doesn't do that. The only team that does that is that team. Sorry. Kathy gets it. The owners get it. The players, they must be aloof to it. The fans, they don't want, the old fans, they don't want to understand that. They don't get to understand that.
Professional sports organizations require clear separation between competing interests to maintain credibility and effectiveness. The WNBA's current approach to these issues suggests a lack of institutional maturity and professional standards. The resolution of these negotiation conflicts will likely establish precedents for future league governance and business practices. The choices made during this period will significantly impact the organization's long-term credibility and success potential. Public and media attention to these issues provides an opportunity for the league to demonstrate its commitment to professional standards and ethical business practices. However, the current approach suggests these opportunities may be missed.
No doubt. No doubt. If this doesn't go well and they have to lock out, it helps the rivaled league. And okay. And they're the ones leading CBA negotiations. How do they negotiate in good faith? Question mark. Make it make sense. Fact is, I can't make it make sense. This is another in the long line of things that make you go, why is the WNBA and its players like this?
The situation serves as a case study in how professional sports organizations can undermine their own interests through poor governance and conflicted leadership. The lessons learned from this experience will likely influence future approaches to league management and player representation. The ongoing development of this situation continues to generate discussion about appropriate standards for professional sports organizations. The outcome of these negotiations will provide important insights into the league's priorities and professional capabilities. The impact on fan perception and media coverage remains significant, with continued scrutiny of the league's decision-making processes and leadership standards. The resolution of these conflicts will influence long-term assessments of the organization's professionalism and business acumen.
Old fans, they don't want to understand that. They don't get to understand that. They think they deserve our attention, folks. They think they're entitled to our support. Not entitled to shit. All due respect, you're just not. Before Colson's Indiana Fever played the Las Vegas Aces on June 22nd, she read a statement of player demands for the new CBA. We'll get to those demands. This week, Fever star Caitlin Clark was heard on Colson's Instagram Live calling out Kathy Engelbert over prize money.
The Women's Basketball League finds itself embroiled in contentious collective bargaining discussions as the current agreement approaches its 2025 expiration. Players have chosen to publicize their grievances through media appearances, hoping public pressure will influence ownership decisions. The negotiation landscape reveals stark contrasts between stakeholder positions. Team ownership operates from a position of financial strength, having sustained losses while supporting the league's operations. These business leaders possess extensive experience in professional sports negotiations and understand market realities. Players appear to be employing public relations tactics, believing fan support will compel ownership concessions. However, this approach may underestimate the sophisticated business acumen of franchise owners who treat negotiations as strategic investments rather than popularity contests.
You go, why is the WNBA and its players like this? Why are they? Somebody came back. I shared this on my X as well, and somebody come back and said, "Well, if the players don't see it as a conflict of interest, why do you care?" Well, look, I mean, they're not exactly Einsteins playing in that league. All right? I mean, whether they think it's a conflict of interest or not, it is a huge conflict of interest. And once again, public perception.
Current league economics present challenging circumstances for all parties. Ownership groups have absorbed significant operational losses over multiple seasons, creating urgency for profitability measures. The league's financial model depends heavily on external subsidies rather than self-sustaining revenue streams. Phoenix Mercury's Satou Sabally characterized the initial ownership proposal as insulting, while New York Liberty's Breanna Stewart expressed frustration with perceived dismissive attitudes during discussions. These reactions suggest substantial gaps between player expectations and ownership offers. League Commissioner Kathy Engelbert serves ownership interests primarily, focusing on franchise profitability and long-term sustainability. Her position requires balancing player satisfaction with business viability, though ownership concerns typically receive priority in decision-making processes.
Kathy Engelbert over prize money after Indiana Fever won the WNBA Commissioner's Cup. That's right, folks. You get more money winning the Commissioner Cup than you do winning the WNBA Finals. So as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the biggest pot available in the league, well, we already got the big pot. Yeah. We chased down the end of that rainbow. We saw a big pot of gold against the Minnesota Lynx. And we took that gold home with us. Oh, that's hysterical. Stewart, 30.
Recent expansion successes and new media agreements have strengthened the league's foundation, but ownership seeks immediate returns on these investments rather than continued deficit spending on player compensation. The Players Association has outlined comprehensive demands addressing multiple areas: elimination of current salary restrictions through equity-based compensation models that scale with league growth. This proposal would fundamentally alter financial arrangements between players and ownership, establishment of clear salary structures that reflect player contributions to increasing league revenues. Current payment systems fail to adequately reward performance relative to business success. Implementation of consistent facility, travel, and operational standards matching other major professional sports leagues. This includes practice facilities, game venues, and travel accommodation, enhanced retirement benefits, and family planning support, providing players with financial stability.